The morning sun filtered softly through the windows of Lowndes High School, casting long shadows across the polished floors of the gymnasium. The hum of students' chatter echoed off the walls as teenagers gathered for early morning practice. Kendrick Johnson, a 17-year-old junior known for his quick smile and easygoing demeanor, laced up his sneakers and waved at his friends. To them, it was just another ordinary school day, filled with the usual drills, laughter, and the occasional prank. Janitor Marcus Williams wheeled a cart down the gym aisle, whistling a soft tune to himself. He had been working the early shift for over a decade and had seen countless kids pass through this gym. But today, something felt off. As he moved past the stack of gym mats stored neatly against the wall, he noticed an unusual bulge in one of them. At first, he assumed it was just a crease, a lump from the way the mats had been rolled, but instinct told him to look closer. With a hesitant hand, Marcus unrolled the mat and froze. Inside, tangled and contorted, lay the lifeless body of Kendrick Johnson. The boy's limbs were pressed into unnatural positions, his face pale and expressionless. Panic surged through Marcus as he stumbled back, knocking over a chair. A shrill scream pierced the quiet air, drawing the attention of nearby teachers and students who had just entered for practice. Chaos erupted. Students clustered near the entrance, whispering, crying, and speculating. Some sobbed openly, others stared in frozen shock, unable to comprehend the scene before them. The school's principal, Dr. Linda Harris, rushed in, her face ashen, followed closely by coaches and staff. Phones appeared, and soon 911 was called. Within minutes, police cars and an ambulance screeched to a halt outside the school, sirens blaring, lights flashing. Inside, the gym was cordoned off with yellow tape, the familiar scent of disinfectant mixing with the metallic tang of fear. Officers spoke in low, urgent tones as paramedics examined Kendrick, but it was immediately clear the teenager was beyond help. His body, pressed into the mat, showed no signs of life. The initial assumption, whispered among authorities, was that Kendrick had somehow fallen into the mat while reaching for a basketball, a tragic accident. But even as they murmured the words, doubt lingered in the air. Something about the positioning of the body and the bruises on his arms and torso didn't add up. Outside, the Johnson family arrived, summoned by frantic calls from friends. Kendrick's mother, Tanya Johnson, burst through the school doors, her heart pounding, clutching her daughter's hand for support. When she saw the police and the gathered crowd, a sinking feeling settled in her chest. "Where is he?" she demanded, voice cracking. An officer gently guided her back, explaining in careful terms that Kendrick had been found in the gym. Tanya collapsed into the arms of a relative, her cries echoing through the gym, cutting through the murmurs and the chaos. Students recounted fragments of what they had seen. Some claimed Kendrick had gone to retrieve a basketball, others said he had been alone for a moment, and a few whispered about a shadowy figure near the mats before he disappeared. The conflicting statements created a sense of confusion and suspicion. The air inside the gym was thick with tension, whispers of fear, and the unspoken question, how could this have happened? As detectives arrived, the narrative shifted to the methodical examination of the scene. They documented the mats, photographed every angle, and marked evidence carefully. Every bruise, every crease, every angle of Kendrick's body was scrutinized. The preliminary autopsy, performed later that afternoon, would report blunt force trauma inconsistent with a simple fall. Yet the medical examiner's cautious language left the door open for doubt, suggesting an accidental death until proven otherwise. The story doesn't shy away from the community's emotional landscape. News of Kendrick's death spread rapidly through Valdosta. Neighbors, classmates, and local business owners expressed shock and grief. Candlelight vigils were organized, and social media exploded with messages of sorrow and calls for answers. A small town that prided itself on safety now faced a terrifying reality. A child, beloved and seemingly untouchable, had died under mysterious and disturbing circumstances. Inside the Johnson home, the grief was almost unbearable. Tanya sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at Kendrick's favorite sneakers, untouched since the morning. She replayed every conversation, every smile, every routine moment, wondering if she had missed a sign. Her husband, Kendrick's stepfather, paced the living room, fists clenched, anger simmering under the surface. The narrative captures these intimate, emotional moments, allowing the audience to feel the weight of the tragedy personally, not just as observers. Meanwhile, back at the school, whispers of foul play began to surface. Students and staff speculated, rumors spreading faster than facts. Had someone intentionally harmed Kendrick? Was it a prank gone wrong? Or was there something darker lurking beneath the surface of the seemingly mundane high school life? The narrative deliberately teases multiple possibilities, creating tension that makes the audience question every detail. The part concludes with a cliffhanger. Investigators uncover bruising on Kendrick's body inconsistent with the theory of an accidental fall. One officer, quietly examining the mat, mutters, "This doesn't feel right." The camera, in a cinematic sense, would linger on the mat, the subtle shadows highlighting the strange angles of Kendrick's body. Outside, the sun sets over Valdosta, casting long shadows across a town suddenly gripped by grief, confusion, and fear. The next morning, Lowndes High School felt different. The usual buzz of teenage energy was replaced by whispers and nervous glances. Police tape still cordoned off the gym, and detectives moved methodically through the scene, their radios buzzing with updates. Investigators were no longer treating Kendrick Johnson's death as a simple accident. Every bruise, every crease in the mat, every odd detail was being scrutinized. Detective Laura Simmons, a seasoned investigator from Valdosta Police Department, reviewed the scene with meticulous care. She knelt beside the gym mat, snapping photographs and making notes. "This body doesn't just roll into a mat on its own," she muttered under her breath. Her instincts screamed foul play, but she knew the pressure from local authorities and the public could push her to tread carefully. Every word she recorded had to be precise. The first step was interviewing those who had been present in the gym the day before. Students were hesitant. Fear had settled like a fog over the halls. Some stuck to the official story. Kendrick had been alone, reached for a basketball, and somehow fell into the mat. Others were less certain, recounting vague movements or the presence of someone they couldn't fully identify. One student, trembling, whispered about a shadow near the mat before Kendrick disappeared. Whether the shadow was real or a figment of fear was unclear, but the detective recorded it carefully. At the Johnson home, Tanya paced, replaying every moment of the previous day in her mind. She had a sharp instinct, honed from years of watching her children navigate life's dangers. Something about the official narrative didn't sit right. She demanded answers, reaching out to reporters, friends, and even legal advisors. Her desperation was mirrored in the family's lawyer, who emphasized that any oversight could be catastrophic. Meanwhile, the coroner's preliminary findings arrived. The report detailed bruising on Kendrick's arms, shoulders, and chest, inconsistent with the fall while retrieving a basketball. There were abrasions along his back that suggested compression, but not in the way one would expect from an accidental roll into a mat. Detectives began to suspect that Kendrick may have been positioned deliberately or at least involved in a struggle. Detective Simmons requested access to the gym's surveillance footage, but the school claimed the tapes were missing, accidentally overwritten during routine maintenance. This missing evidence sparked outrage among the Johnson family and their supporters. The absence of footage was particularly troubling. It meant there were no concrete records of Kendrick's final moments. Was it negligence or something intentional? The question hung over the investigation like a shadow. The media had already picked up the story. News vans lined the streets outside Lowndes High, their cameras trained on a grieving family and a town desperate for answers. Headlines questioned whether this was an accidental death or a tragic murder, and social media became a battleground of rumors and speculation. Tanya found herself in the spotlight, her grief exploited and scrutinized, yet her resolve only hardened. She vowed to uncover the truth no matter the obstacles. Detectives continued interviews with staff. Coaches were nervous, providing carefully rehearsed accounts of the day's events. Some admitted to hearing a loud thump or seeing Kendrick near the mats, but no one claimed to have witnessed a fall. One janitor confessed to hearing students joking around near the gym after hours, but denied seeing anyone physically involved. Every statement was cross-referenced, revealing inconsistencies and contradictions that deepened the mystery. The investigation revealed a troubling detail. Previous safety reports had documented hazards in the gym, including poorly stacked mats and insufficient monitoring during early morning practice. While these issues could theoretically explain an accident, the pattern of bruising on Kendrick's body did not align with a simple fall. Detective Simmons considered the possibility that someone's negligence, or worse, deliberate actions, might have contributed to the death. The Johnsons were not content to wait. They hired independent forensic experts who examined the body and the mat. Their preliminary conclusions suggested that Kendrick's injuries were not purely accidental and could have been the result of manipulation or compression. The community's anxiety spiked, fueled by leaks from legal filings and investigative reports. Candlelight vigils now turned into small protests, demanding accountability from both the school and law enforcement. Tension between the Johnson family and local authorities escalated. The police, concerned about public perception, emphasized the accidental death theory in statements to the press, frustrating the family, who had now become vocal critics of the investigation. In the midst of this, Detective Simmons quietly continued her work, following leads and interviewing witnesses who had been too scared to speak publicly. A breakthrough came when a janitor revealed that days before Kendrick's death, a student had reported seeing him climb on the mats, apparently reaching for a basketball, but another figure had been nearby, watching. Whether this figure was real or a figment of fear was unclear, but the detective recorded it carefully. The investigation also uncovered potential tampering with evidence. Some items from the gym were misplaced. One mat had inexplicable scratches and marks. Detective Simmons requested federal oversight, suspecting that something in the local chain of custody might have compromised the integrity of the scene. The tension escalated further when the story made national headlines, shining a light on the small town and placing every participant under scrutiny. The air in Valdosta was thick with tension. Weeks had passed since Kendrick Johnson's body was discovered, yet the questions surrounding his death only grew louder. Every corner of the town seemed to whisper a different version of events. Some spoke of an accident, others murmured about negligence, and a few even hinted at darker possibilities. The Johnson family had become relentless in their quest for answers, refusing to accept the official narrative. Detective Laura Simmons worked tirelessly, poring over evidence that seemed to multiply with every new report. The bruising on Kendrick's body, the scratches on the gym mats, and the inexplicably missing surveillance footage formed a pattern that hinted at deliberate concealment. Each lead she pursued revealed more inconsistencies, deepening the sense of conspiracy surrounding the case. She knew the path forward would be treacherous. Federal investigators had joined the inquiry, responding to mounting public pressure. They were meticulous and thorough, interviewing staff, students, and local officials. Their presence intensified the scrutiny on Lowndes High School and the Valdosta Police Department. Officers who had previously maintained that Kendrick's death was a tragic accident now faced questions they had not anticipated. In the gym, independent forensic experts retraced Kendrick's final moments. Using diagrams and 3D reconstructions, they concluded that the bruising on his shoulders and chest could not have been caused by an accidental fall into the mat. The body's unnatural positioning, combined with compression marks inconsistent with a tumble, suggested someone may have forced him inside. The revelation electrified the Johnson family. Tanya's grief now transformed into determination. She would not rest until every shadow surrounding her son's death was brought to light. Meanwhile, tensions within the school staff became palpable. Teachers whispered behind closed doors. Coaches who had initially provided consistent alibis began to crack under questioning. One longtime gym teacher admitted, reluctantly, that mats had been mishandled before, that maintenance records were sometimes falsified, and that students were occasionally unsupervised during early morning practice. The web of negligence seemed to grow, raising the stakes and the likelihood of institutional responsibility. Detective Simmons examined every angle, looking for motives that could explain foul play. Was Kendrick the victim of a prank gone horribly wrong, or had someone deliberately targeted him? Some students described seeing a figure lurking near the gym the morning of his death, but fear and intimidation had kept them silent until now. The idea that someone in the school might have feared exposure or retribution introduced a chilling dimension to the investigation. The story introduces community conflict and media frenzy, heightening the suspense. Local reporters had dug into Kendrick's life, painting a portrait of a promising teenager whose life was abruptly stolen. National media followed, reporting every twist in the investigation. The Johnsons faced both support and scrutiny, with their grief broadcasted across news cycles. Protesters gathered outside the school, demanding accountability, while local officials tried to maintain the narrative. Late one night, Detective Simmons received an anonymous tip. A staff member had seen a student climbing on the mats the day of Kendrick's death, but another adult had intervened in a way that had never been reported. The detective traced the lead, uncovering a troubling pattern. Multiple accounts of suspicious behavior had been minimized or ignored, suggesting a cover-up, intentional or otherwise. Now, the investigation faced a new obstacle: conflicting expert opinions. Some forensic reports suggested accidental compression, while others, particularly those commissioned by the Johnson family, pointed to foul play. The discrepancy sparked heated debates in the town, dividing opinion and intensifying public scrutiny. The tension was palpable. The deeper the investigation went, the more the walls of the small town seemed to close in. Simmons and the federal team revisited the gym, conducting a painstaking reconstruction. Using mannequins and careful measurement, they simulated every scenario: accidental fall, prank, or deliberate action. The results were chilling. The position of the mats, combined with the depth and pattern of bruising, strongly indicated external manipulation. Someone may have attempted to stage an accident, a detail that had been overlooked in the initial investigation. In parallel, the story explores the psychological toll on Kendrick's family. Tanya struggled with nightmares and anxiety, replaying the discovery of her son over and over. Her husband alternated between bursts of rage and crushing despair. The narrative emphasizes their human vulnerability while portraying their unwavering resolve to uncover the truth. Their fight was not just for justice, but for understanding, for a sense of closure that seemed increasingly elusive. Public protests escalated. Demonstrators demanded answers, waving signs reading "Justice for Kendrick" and "No cover-ups." Social media amplified the tension as rumors and theories circulated wildly. Detectives were inundated with tips, both credible and misleading, complicating their efforts to focus on the strongest leads. The story captures this chaos, giving the audience the sense of a town gripped by uncertainty and fear. Then came the pivotal moment. Forensic specialists discovered subtle traces of fibers and skin under the mat, inconsistent with Kendrick's clothing or body. These microscopic details suggested another presence, someone who had handled or manipulated the mat. It was a breakthrough that reinvigorated the investigation, giving the Johnsons a glimmer of hope. Simultaneously, whispers of possible administrative negligence surfaced. School officials had been slow to report injuries, and prior safety warnings had been ignored. Some began to speculate whether the mat incident had been an accident exacerbated by systemic failures, or if it had been deliberately obscured to protect certain individuals. Detective Simmons pondered the implications. Uncovering the truth might expose not just one person, but a network of complicity. The investigation into Kendrick Johnson's death had stretched for months, evolving from a presumed accident into a sprawling mystery that gripped the town of Valdosta and drew national attention.
By now, the community had grown weary and wary, families whispering warnings to their children, reporters lingering at every corner, and the Johnson family's grief turning into a relentless demand for accountability. Detective Laura Simmons spent countless hours piecing together fragments of evidence. The faint smudges of blood under the gym mat, the strange bruising patterns, missing surveillance footage, and conflicting statements painted a picture far more sinister than anyone had imagined. Yet, despite the revelations, concrete answers remained elusive. The trail was muddied by inconsistent witness accounts and potential administrative negligence. The more investigators dug, the more tangled the web became. Meanwhile, the Johnson family had become a symbol of both grief and courage. Tanya Johnson, once devastated and voiceless, now spoke at town hall meetings, to reporters, and even before state representatives. Her voice, though tremulous with grief, carried authority and unwavering determination. She demanded transparency and justice, insisting that the investigation consider every possibility, no matter how uncomfortable. Her husband and extended family supported her fiercely, enduring the relentless media scrutiny while clinging to the hope that someone, anyone, would be held accountable. Inside Lowndes High School, the aftermath of Kendrick's death lingered like a shadow. Students and staff moved cautiously through the halls. Conversations about what really happened were hushed and wary. Some teachers admitted privately that protocols had been ignored, and the gym's mat storage had long been considered unsafe. The administration had replaced the mats, conducted safety drills, and revised supervision schedules, but the lingering sense of guilt and unease permeated every corner. The federal review brought more scrutiny. Independent forensic specialists continued analyzing the mats, fibers, and skin fragments. They discovered anomalies suggesting that Kendrick may have been forcibly placed in the mat rather than accidentally slipping inside. Experts presented their findings to a grand jury, sparking intense debates among legal teams, investigators, and the public. Questions about negligence versus deliberate action dominated every discussion. The community remained divided. Some people clung to the tragic accident theory, unwilling to believe that anyone could have intentionally harmed a teenager. Others, fueled by media reports and advocacy from the Johnson family, insisted on the possibility of foul play. Social media amplified every theory, every speculation, every rumor, making it impossible to separate fact from conjecture. Yet beneath the noise, one truth remained undeniable. Kendrick's life had been cut tragically short, and the town would never be the same. In the midst of the chaos, an anonymous witness finally came forward. The individual, a former student who had been hesitant to speak out of fear of retaliation, revealed that they had seen Kendrick enter the gym mat area under unusual circumstances, followed by an unidentified figure who seemed to manipulate the mats. While the account did not offer a definitive answer, it provided critical context that corroborated the forensic evidence of forced placement. Detective Simmons knew this was the closest the investigation had come to a breakthrough. Legal battles followed. The Johnson family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the school district, citing negligence, ignored safety protocols, and a failure to protect students. Courtroom proceedings were tense, with testimony from forensic experts, school administrators, and eyewitnesses. Each revelation added layers of complexity to the case, keeping the audience on edge. The narrative doesn't shy away from the procedural drama, the back and forth of legal maneuvering, the clashing testimonies, and the painstaking examination of evidence, but always grounds it in the emotional core of the family's struggle. Through it all, Kendrick's life remained central. Flashbacks to his laughter on the basketball court, his dedication to his studies, and his dreams of a promising future reminded the audience of what had been lost. Tanya and her family worked tirelessly to honor his memory, establishing scholarships, hosting community events, and speaking publicly about student safety. These acts of resilience and advocacy lent the story a sense of hope amid the sorrow. Despite months of investigation, some questions remained unanswered. The identity of the figure seen manipulating the mats, the motives behind potential negligence, and the exact sequence of events were never fully resolved. This ambiguity created a lingering tension, reflecting the frustrating reality of many true crime cases where justice is partial or delayed. Yet the story emphasizes that even without complete closure, the pursuit of truth has power, and the courage of those who fight for it can inspire change. The narrative closes on a reflective and cinematic note. The gym, once a scene of tragedy, is now quiet and orderly, sunlight streaming through high windows. Detective Simmons walks through the room one last time, pausing by the mats that had hidden so many secrets. Her eyes linger on the faint smudges of evidence that remain, a testament to the boy whose life was stolen too soon. She murmurs softly, "We may never know everything, but we will never forget him." Outside, Tanya Johnson stands at a memorial candlelight vigil with friends, family, and supporters. The flames flicker in the evening breeze, reflecting the hope and resilience that have emerged from tragedy. Though the town has been changed forever, the story honors Kendrick's life, his impact, and the pursuit of justice that his family embodies. The final shot is symbolic. A basketball rests alone on the polished gym floor, sunlight glinting off its surface. It is a reminder of Kendrick Johnson, a teenager whose laughter, dreams, and life were stolen, but whose story continues to resonate, inspiring vigilance, advocacy, and the unyielding pursuit of truth.